Good night, Bahamas. Coming up in Our News, a Grand Bahama-based hotel union eagerly awaits the renovation and reopening of Baker's Key Hotel. The PLP eyeing more female candidates.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Good night, Bahamas. Thanks for joining us for Our News. I'm Georgia Bain, topping news tonight. Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest revealing this week that it will take 6 months and $8 million to repair the Baker's Key Resort at the Grand Lucayan Hotel. President of the Commonwealth Union of Hotel Service Allied Workers, Michelle Dorset, says her members are eagerly awaiting that day. Jared Higgs reports.
With Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest revealing this week that Baker's Key could be operational within 6 months, President of the Commonwealth Union of Hotel Service Allied Workers, Michelle Dorset, says it came as a surprise because they, like senior government officials, believed the Memories Resort had sustained less damage.
I also told Vaughan McCartney also that I thought his Memories also was less damage. But when we met with Paul Scott on executive board meeting, he said it was less expense. So at the end of the day, the damages was not that severe.
Turnquest also revealed that the Lighthouse Point, which is currently open, would require $15 million to repair. Those renovations will take 8 months to complete, and the hotel will stay open during that time. The Memories Resort, which has been closed since 2016, has a repair bill of $15.5 million, with government expressing little interest in footing that bill. And with those figures finally released, Dorset described Baker's Key as having top-of-the-line potential.
So therefore, that is fantastic news on our behalf. Fantastic news because there's more rooms, so there's more spacious and everything else. Luxury.
The union president swooned when she described just how many jobs that would mean for Grand Bahamians.
We're talking about 1,200. 1,200.
She added that they are keeping their faith strong.
So you're looking really at hoping that this...
Not hoping, believing and having that faith. We come this far, and yes, now we see the doors being opened.
The 522-room Baker's Key was completed in 2001 at a cost of $400 million. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
The Progressive Liberal Party is hoping to reclaim most, if not all, of the seats it lost during last year's general election. PLP Chairman Fred Mitchell said that is why they are now after the brightest and best candidates on the island, including more women. Here's Kyle Joaquin with the details.
Women have to have a very important role to play.
In an effort to persuade more women and millennials to get involved in frontline politics, PLP Chairman Fred Mitchell said they must first understand the importance of their demographic.
You know, 50 in the election, 53% of the electorate turned out to be women. So there are more women on the rolls than men on the rolls. So they really control the forward movement of our politics.
Party leader Philip Davis confirmed this past week that the PLP will host a convention in November in alignment with the party's constitution. The details are to be discussed during the party's leadership council this coming week. Also on the agenda, criteria for potential candidates.
The way our constitution will read, because when the convention comes up, we hope to have a new constitution, the choice of who ends up being a candidate will be more branch focused. So in other words, the constituency branches will have the greatest say over who will be running for office. The only caveat I would add to that is that there's a due diligence portion of this.
However, he explained that there must first be certain restrictions in place.
For example, in one of the Caribbean countries, it got to the point where a drug dealer almost got into the House of Assembly because he was able to buy the local branch, so to speak, by his money and use the influence. You've got to have a situation where the party is able to veto a choice which does not pass the due diligence test. And so I would agree to this extent that there must be a due diligence test, and the party ought to be able to exercise some say over that in exercising that test, whether someone passes the fit and proper test in order to be a parliamentarian.
The PLP has created a module that all prospective candidates must complete. For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
In tonight's crime report, illegal drugs recovered. In the first incident, according to reports, shortly after 4 p.m., drug enforcement officers conducted a search of a residence off Hawthorne Road in Oaksfield and recovered 4 plastic bags with suspected marijuana, with an estimated weight of 4 pounds and 12 ounces, with a street value of $4,600. In the second incident, shortly before 9 p.m., drug enforcement officers, while on patrol in the area of Cowpen Road, stopped and searched a white minivan with 2 male occupants and recovered 2 packages with suspected marijuana, with an estimated weight of 15 pounds, 11 ounces, and a street value of $15,500. The 2 men were taken into custody and are expected to be arraigned in the magistrate's court later this week. Police are also investigating a shooting incident. According to reports, shortly after 10 p.m., a male was walking through a track road off Flamingo Gardens when he was approached by a man armed with a firearm, who shot him. The victim then ran to a nearby residence and was assisted to the hospital, where he is listed in stable condition. Police also need your help with an armed robbery. According to reports, shortly after 4 a.m. Sunday, a man was in his vehicle in a parking lot of a business establishment on Soldier Road when he was approached by 2 armed men who robbed him of his silver Nissan Cube. Investigations into these matters are ongoing. Well, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly, Don Saunders, is throwing his full support behind House Speaker Halson Moutry, who this week lashed at the government over a supersized cabinet and what he called an adulterous relationship between the Attorney General's office and the cabinet. Our Jasmine Brown has the details.
Saunders says not only were the Speaker's comments the right thing to say, he says it was said exactly the right time.
I think the Speaker was on point.
During a nearly 40-minute communication in Parliament on Wednesday, the Speaker claimed the executive has increasingly been encroaching on the independence of Parliament. Moutry said the separation of power is critical and no one of the 3 branches of government should encroach upon the other. He called on the Prime Minister to ensure that in making appointments to the executive, there are sufficient backbenchers remaining to allow Parliament to hold the government accountable. Saunders says they were all points that he believes hit a home run with the majority of backbenchers in the House of Assembly.
What the Speaker did was really brought it to light. At least I think it's going to be in the heads of the cabinet. It's definitely going to continue to be in the heads of the backbenchers. And so I definitely support the views of the Speaker. And I think if you speak to most other backbenchers, certainly you would see that they agree, even if they don't want to put it on record, right? I could guarantee that they would agree.
Moutry also challenged Parliament to pass a law establishing an independent statutory parliamentary service commission with administrative and budgetary control for the institution. The House Speaker also argued that there should be an amendment that establishes a limit on the number of ministers that can be appointed in order to eliminate supersized cabinets. As for the Speaker's assertion that there is an adulterous relationship between Cabinet and the Attorney General's office, Saunders said he didn't quite agree with that point.
I think if you look at history, there were some challenges with other speakers in that regard, right? Where they relied on the AG. Now, from a practical perspective, if the Speaker has issue with some procedure, one would think that the AG, who was hired by the Prime Minister, and in the cabinet, it's most likely if there's a conflict between the views of the Speaker and the Prime Minister, one could only imagine or guess where the strength of the lane will be. And so the Speaker has the right, I would suggest, to be able to seek and to get legal advice from other persons. I think that makes much sense. That doesn't mean that he doesn't respect the AG. It just means that it speaks to his position on the separation of powers.
Saunders is not the only backbencher to support the Speaker. On Wednesday, Pine Ridge MP Frederick McAlpine told our news team that Moutry's passionate communication was a breath of fresh air. The leader of Government Business and Bamboo Town MP Renward Wells has said Cabinet is already addressing some of the concerns highlighted by the Speaker. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Government tabled its much-touted fiscal responsibility bill in Parliament. Executive Director of the Organization for Responsible Governance, Matt Aubrey, says unlike other bills, government sought views from the public prior to its introduction. That, he says, is a step in the right direction.
What we saw with a number of bills in the last year is that they were tabled and then there was a call for public consultation. But when we see the best practices, it really is that you engage both your legal profession, your economists and civil society, private industry beforehand, and that was done. As we understood it, the bill was they were trying to put it on the legislative docket before they closed session for the summer. That didn't happen. So we've been calling for this to be a priority, and we're really happy to see that it was tabled.
Aubrey says the draft bill and the bill that was tabled are slightly different. Despite that, they plan to go through it page by page.
Because we want to ensure that this is not only clear, transparent, that there's regular mechanisms for financial reporting, but there's also accountability, ensuring that government meets the mandate of reducing government debt and spending in an appropriate measure. When we talk about the fiscal responsibility and things like whether it be VAT, you're seeing incredibly large programs of money coming in from public dollars, and we want to ensure that they get used in the most appropriate way. The level of reporting that's contained in the bill, which again draws from best practices, is showing that that would happen very regularly and that there would be an independent group that would be looking at that as well. So we're hoping that maintains in the current version. We'll do our analysis and have specific comment on that going forward.
Well, still to come in our news, IRCA eyeing changes to the mobile services sector, plus how the Chamber of Commerce is enhancing dialogue on the Commercial Enterprise Act. That's coming up when we return.